Making plum jam, you need a pound of stoned fruit. So this is a very old but reliable scale, a 1 pound weight. Then if you've got, depending on what the fruit you've got, if you've got Victorias, you can normally squeeze them like that and extract the stone and let most of the fruit go into the scale. Or you can use a knife like that. It depends on what the fruit is. Victoria in general is quite good for destoning. But whatever you do, you've got to produce 1 pound of destoned plum flesh. So that's 1 pound of stoned plums. The best vessel I've found for making plum jam is to get a 3 litre glass. This one is a Pyrex dish. You need quite a lot of space above the plums during the second stage because it will rise up quite a lot. So you need quite a big container. But those are my plums in there. What I'm doing now is put a lid on, just a plate, and then we'll put that in the microwave oven for about 12 minutes with the plate on. For 1 pound of plums we're going to need 12 ounces of sugar, so we've got an 8 and a 4 ounce weight on here. And then we had, this is just ordinary granulated sugar. You can get to thinking that you could make larger amounts, but the problem is that you've got to get enough heat into the plum and sugar mixture at the next stage. So really about a pound is about the maximum you can make, even in a fairly powerful microwave. Mine's not a very powerful one, but I've tried it in bigger microwaves. If you go much beyond a pound, it normally doesn't work. So these are our plums which have been in the microwave for 12 minutes with the pan on, so they've been cooked. We've now got to add 12 ounces of sugar, and then that's got to be, it doesn't always come out so well, the sugar. So if there's been a dampness in, which there is from having the plums in before, it tends to stick on them, so you can get as much sugar out as you can. And then you simply stir the plums and the sugar together, so you've got a good mix. What you don't want is all the sugar at the bottom, because that will not form a jam. There's no need to add, plums have a lot of pectin, a lot of natural setting agent in them, so you don't need to add any other chemicals, any pectin or anything like that to the mix, but you do have to keep it or stir it up at this point quite well, so that there's no residue of sugar at the bottom. And you can, if there is, you can normally feel it with a spoon. A wooden spoon seems to be the ideal tool for this job. It's the one I much prefer. So that is now ready to go and go under the long cooking time. Determining the time to put it in the microwave now is really a matter of experiment. I found that with a very modern, powerful microwave, I can cook them in about 18 minutes, or make a jam within about 18 minutes. In the machine I've got here, it takes about 24 minutes. The other point, of course, is that the modern new machines keep breaking, whereas this machine I bought a long time ago keeps working. So I quite like that aspect of it. So what I'm going to do now is put this in for 24 minutes, and then I'll come back and show you how I do a test to see if the jam is set. There are two conditions that you want to avoid. One is that the jam doesn't set, so it becomes sloppy and it's not really a proper jam. The second is it oversets or becomes more like toffee. So there's some sort of sweet spot in the middle, which is the jam condition that you want to arrive at. So this is the mix that's come out of the microwave. During the microwave, it will bubble all the way up, and you can see the tide mark has been just right up here. So it gets very hot and very bubbly. What we need to do now is to see whether the jam is set or not. And the way to do that is to take a plate which has been in the freezer, so it's cold, and to put a little bit of jam on that plate, let it cool, and then move your finger along like that and look for wrinkles, so that you can see now that as we push the jam, there's a bit of a wrinkling forming, and that's really the classic test for a jam that will set, and that should be fine now. In terms of jarring, then you can buy special jars, and if you're doing it for sale, then obviously you've got to then use new jars, and also they should be sterilised. That's a procedure which I'm not going to bother with because this is just for me. So any really jam jar will do. So this is a good kind of ladling spoon. So you can take a good bit of jam and put it into the jar like that. So you just go on filling the jar, oops, like that. It's actually hot, this, so don't get it on your fingers like I've just done because it burns. Oops. You can put greaseproof paper or other things over the top, or you can use canning jars, preserve jars, which snap down, but I just don't bother. After a while in storage, it possibly can form a little mould on top. If it does, just scrape it off and ignore it. It doesn't really cause any detriment to the jam itself. So all I will do is put this jam in, put the lid on, and then put it into store. And assuming I can wait that long, it's very Moorish. It's very particularly hot jam on bread is a sort of delightful food. So it's easy to eat quite a lot of it. Well, got to let it cool a little bit, but ideally put it on the shelf so you don't see it so often, and it'll last quite a while. As I said, occasionally you do get a mould on top, but it doesn't really matter. Just scrape it off and you're fine. So the yield is not great. You've got two jam jars. They're not full in both of them about, I don't know, 3/4 or something like that full. So the yield's not great, but the quality is very good. I have made it before in preserving pans where you can get more yield, but it's a lot more work, and it's also much more prone to burn at the bottom. This method I find is relatively quick and convenient, and if you're doing other things in the kitchen, you can sort of schedule this thing, and if you've got 2 microwaves, it goes even faster. But generally speaking, I find the quality of the microwave jam to be absolutely excellent. It's one of my favourite jams. And when my father was in hospital, before he died, one of the nurses asked him what his favourite food was, and he said it was my jam. So that was the greatest compliment really I could have. So this is one of the pots of jam about an hour and a half, 2 hours later. So I would drop down the top, and it popped up. And in terms of the jam itself, you see it's not runny at all. It's not running out of the jar, and the actual consistency is just what you expect or what you want for jam. That, in my view, is about as good as you can make it. So if you've got some plums and some sugar, I recommend you have a go at making microwave plum jam. I think it's one of the best preserves that I've ever eaten. Good luck. So we are trying a little bit on a piece of malt bread. One of the joys about this jam is that you retain the skin, and that's a very pleasant thing to be eating. So the whole food itself is just marvellous. It's just a great pleasure to have.